Thanks for tuning in to this week's Hot Button. Now, just to recap on last week when we talked about the NHL lockout and what you were doing to pass the time and instead of NHL games, we have a few more comments from our virtual friends online. Matt says on Facebook that he is siding with the players this time. He says the owners handed out hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts the day before the lockout, and now they want a rollback. He thinks that if the owners couldn't afford them, they shouldn't have signed them in the first place. And also he said when it comes to players being greedy, he says that most players are in the highest tax bracket, so often have to pay taxes in several states and perhaps even both countries, Canada and the US, depending on where they're playing.
I thought about that.
Yeah, and Ashley on Facebook as well brings us back to the question of what she's doing without NHL hockey as opposed to discussing the lockout specifically. And she says, so far this season, Chilliwack Men's Ball Hockey League. She watches them play every Sunday. And even though it is a no-contact sport, she still says there are still a few elbows, hooks, and high sticks. So thank you very, very much for your comments, everyone, weighing in on Facebook and on Twitter. We appreciate you taking the time to share your comments with us. Now, this week's topic, we're going to move on to queuing. No, not playing pool. Queuing up, as in lining up. Now, everything from malls, restaurants, parking lots, grocery stores, even the self-checkouts, we find ourselves waiting in some form or some kind of a lineup. So we asked you guys out in our virtual community what you thought of queuing or lining up and what you do to pass the time. And Kevin on Facebook says that smartphones have made standing in line 1,000 times better, but he still doesn't find it that much fun. And Tiff says she's not totally convinced of the self-checkouts at grocery stores, actually. She feels that half the time most of the people don't know how to use them properly. And oftentimes the express checkouts, people have more items in their cart than the limit, making the express line not an express checkout. So thank you again to you guys for weighing in, and we do want to hear your thoughts and comments. As for lining up, that sort of thing, I have to agree with Kevin. You know, I'm guilty. I'm very busy. I'm always going. So when I'm forced to stand in a line, I do whip out my phone and check my Facebook and Instagram, that sort of thing. You know, it just gives me something to do to pass the time. But yeah, it's inevitable. You're always stuck in some kind of a lineup.
This is true. The average human wastes about 45 to 62 minutes a day waiting.
No doubt.
And whether that's, filling up a tank of gas or you're, waiting on hold to talk to, the credit bureau, whatever the case may be. And so I think in a 70-year span, the average person spends approximately 3 years of their life waiting.
3 years. Yeah, it's kind of like that sleeping statistic, how we all know that we waste some of our lives sleeping. So we waste a lot of our lives waiting in lineups.
This is true. And although I think personally, the wait time for me kind of depends on the activity or the event or the product that I'm seeking out. I mean, if it's a concert that I'm dying to go to, then I will wait on hold.
Seriously?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay,
but
will you wait in lineup?
I think it depends on the band. If it's a band that I'm dying to see, absolutely. I will make that time and wait at that line.
You will physically sit outside a building?
Yes, I would. However, when it comes to maybe visiting a bar or a restaurant on a busy Saturday night, maybe it's because I spent all that time working hospitality, I am more likely to try and charm the doorman or slip him a $20 bill in order to get out of that lineup.
Now, as for events and that sort of thing, I'm a fanatic as much as the next person is. Again, it depends on who it is or what the product is. But I'm much more likely, I'm lazy. I don't want to sit outside in the rain or the cold, but I'll sit online and go click, refresh.
But sometimes that's part of the whole excitement, the energy. Everyone's out there.
Oh God, give me the tickets already.
Okay, but you know what? Waiting in line doesn't necessarily guarantee you that you're going to get that spot or that product. I mean, I waited on the phone online for, I don't know, at least an hour or so for Coachella tickets this spring, and I still never got them. So, I mean, that was...
So you wasted time.
So I did waste time, and I never even got what I wanted in the first place. Another thing, though, on November 30th, there was the midnight release of the Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And around 10 p.m., I must have seen, no joke, over 100 people waiting outside of Electronic Boutique, waiting to get their hands on those games.
And when was it supposed to go on sale? Like in the morning sometime?
Well, midnight.
Oh, midnight,
so
right.
people were already lined up at 10 p.m. before, waiting to get their copy of that new video game.
Yeah, no, I've been lucky sometimes. I mean, when it comes to, a lot of times we think of lining up, we don't think about on hold necessarily. Credit card companies, banking, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's much faster to do an online or to call in, that sort of thing. I gotta say, I've been lucky with my bank. I've been able to call in and not sit on hold longer than 2 minutes, but that is such a waste of time.
That's
you're
an
trying
anomaly,
to do
though.
yeah, it is. And usually when you're on hold, you're like trying to do some other things to, you know, pass the time and get things rolling along. But I find my biggest time waster is in the vehicle, lining up in traffic. Oh, I mean, the new Port Mann Bridge is open, so with all those lanes, hopefully people moving from the valley to the city, things can go a little bit smoother. I would rather, honestly, if it's going to charge me, okay, charge me, pay. But I don't want to be sitting in the lineup. I don't want to be paying to sit in the lineup. If I'm paying, I want to be moving.
So you are spending the majority of those 3 years waiting in a vehicle.
Yes, yes, that is me.
Okay, and there's also another study that suggests the average time spent slogging through automated systems and waiting on hold is 122 seconds. And according to that study, that's 3% up from 5 years ago. So there's a lot of people sitting on that telephone. There's more people, yeah. And there's a lot of people sitting on that phone waiting to talk to that live person instead of, you know, going through that automated system, which I know can be frustrating for a lot of people. Sometimes you just want to talk to a real person. You don't want to be talking to a robot on the phone.
Yeah, and then you're pressing 0, 0, I want to talk to this person, and then it's like, I do not understand your command. Okay, well, 0 isn't your operator button, 9 is. I'm just like trying to get to a person. I know. I totally understand. But bringing it back to like in person, grocery stores. I'm always scanning. All right, who's physically moving the groceries the fastest across the till? I will not go to one of those self-checkouts. I got to admit with Tiffany, half the time people don't know how to use them, or they're using them but you're using a coupon or something, and then you have to call the attendant anyway. Oh my God. It's just faster just to get someone to move your product for you.
Yes, and I mean, groceries is one of those things. I mean, you don't really have the choice. You have to buy food, right? So
at some point, yes.
So you're going to end up waiting that line. So what are you doing to pass the time? Have you found a creative way to pass the time while you're waiting in line? If so, tell us about it. We want to hear your thoughts. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook, and next week on Hot Button, we'll revisit your comments.